Yes, going to be teaching you about quantum entwinement subspace prayer, how to become a QESP therapist, how to be able to help people, and understand the ideas of subspace, that there is a connection, a place where we are still connected. We now know in science that quantum entwinement, quantum entanglement, is a basic principle of science that everybody has accepted. At one level, there still is a communication that's established. Now, I was able to see this many, many years ago and started to find out the research that I was doing. And we found that there was a connectivity, a collective unconsciousness, a God principle. And so we started with some of the great ideas. I worked with Hans Selye, Albert St. Georgi, Nobel Prize winner, and basically started with some of the basic ideas of life, some of the things that Feynman and Tesla and Einstein and even the Dalai Lama, ideas of connection, synchronicity, ideas of spooky action at a distance. And Rupert Sheldrake gave us an idea of a morphic resonance that was shape resonating through space. Now, I worked on the Apollo project way back in 1969, 71. I was very instrumental in getting the astronauts back on Apollo 13. And I started doing research on this at Youngstown State University. Published a book on the Promorpheus. This was 1982. Youngstown State was 74. We developed the EPFX, got it registered with the United States government in 1989, had a host of success with it, started treating patients. Then we came up here in Hungary with the QXCI. Then somebody asked me if I could bring in a radionic capacity, a computerized radionics, not needing the human. Well, I had to develop a true random number access to be able to get that to work. I had to develop a Tibetan prayer wheel to put into the system to stabilize the indeterminacy matrix. And then we developed the International Medical University of Natural Education, 1996, along with a journal in 1996, a complete peer-reviewed journal. We started with courses on the Tao, many other medical courses, and now we're offering the Quantum Entwinement Subspace Prayer Program. We now know that all the scientists of the world have now universally accepted quantum entwinement, quantum entanglement, as science. Wasn't such back in 1974 when I started doing this research. Now they've accepted it. And the original research that I did back in 1974 at Youngstown State, where people communicated through a different dimension, a subspace dimension. Now that's been duplicated. All that science has been duplicated. And you can learn how to do this yourself. Now we are teaching you in the Quantum Entwinement Subspace Prayer Program. If you're using the device with the harness, then you're doing biofeedback, and that's a whole different set of rules. Now we're going to be talking about using these devices, from our history, using devices in subspace. Here's a big picture of all the different famous sports people who have used the thing in subspace and with the harness that have been incredible treatments, incredible stories. And you could get all those stories in a different place. But here today we're going to be talking about how to become a subspace therapist, how to join into the quantum program. Because literally we sold 37,000 devices around the world. Biofeedback has a scope of practice that allows us to work with stress reduction and diseases and other different things. But now we're going to be going beyond just biofeedback. We're going to be taking this to a new form of QESP, recognizing that the biofeedback consultant waiver is something we use for biofeedback, and a different waiver will be needed. As we now have seen people waiting in line in our society shoulder to shoulder, but now social distancing is coming along. We are all basically being restricted. You might say we're on some type of house arrest. we're going to be working and trying to teach you how to help patients at a distance by first getting your QESP prayer therapist certificate, your license, getting this license that has been accredited around the world, and starting to learn how to help people. The Latin word eductor, where doctor comes from, it means teacher. And Thomas Edison said that the doctors of the future would teach patients how to live, how to eat. A scientist, from the Latin word scio, tries to understand, tries to know.
Certain scientists develop their ideas on replication, and it becomes their god, but that's not the way the world works. It reminds me of a story of a man named Joe. Joe was a very bad boy and was in and out of jail and in and out of juvie and problems. Stealing, lying, cheating, hurting, fighting. As a young adult, he was taken away to jail once again, where he became very strong, working on the weights every day, became very bitter and cruel. And he came back to the town where he lived in upstate New York. This was a very angry man, very violent, very troubled. Joe, this angry man, this angry soul, came back to his town. And when he came back, everybody was afraid. Everybody got out of the way. And within a couple of days, there were power tools missing, and a boat missing, and TVs missing, and everybody said, well, it's Joe, and one day he'll get caught. Back to jail we go. He was walking into the town. And there was Mary. Mary was kind of a gangly, tall, yet attractive woman, but much taller than the other men of her age. And Joe came down, and all the other women had run away, afraid, but Mary stood her ground. And Joe came up to her and said, there's a dance on Saturday night. Would you go with me? As he said in kind of a rough tone. And Mary looked at him, contemplated, and said 5 little words. Would you be a gentleman? Joe in turn thought and said, yes. Went to the dance, and he was a gentleman. They started to fall in love. Something had touched Joe's heart. Something had made a bifurcation point that all of a sudden he decided to turn away from the anger and hate to the more positive emotions in the human soul. They went out a couple more times, and he was always a gentleman. Then what happened was the power tools were returned, and the boat and TV, and Joe worked to help people rebuild the fence and fix the roof and help people around, and people gave him some minor amounts of money, and he fell in love with Mary. They got married, had children, and later became the president of the Board of Education. Now here was a man that changed his whole life because of 5 words. Would you be a gentleman? Now scientists would say, let's take 100 men out of the local prison and get 100 gangly tall women, and who would say, would you be a gentleman? And they would soon test this and find out that it doesn't work statistically. Thereby they would poo-poo the whole idea and say it doesn't work. But that's not the way life is. Life is a complexity and a fractal. And what touches people? And I'm always looking for what 5 words can touch my patient.
Oh, it's a religion.
Belief.
Right on the wall. Each human being has an integrity that can be hurt only by the act of that same human being, and not by the act of another human being. Is that Quaker stuff? You mean nobody can hurt you but yourself?
Friends believe.
Well, supposing somebody whacks you over the head with a branding iron. Won't that hurt?
Physically, of course. But in reality, it would injure only the person doing the act of force or violence. Only the doer can be hurt by a mean or evil act.
Are there very many of you Quakers?
Very few.
Sort of figured that.
Life is a complexity and a fractal. And what touches people? And I'm always looking for what 5 words can touch my patient. Sometimes it's just as simple as, don't become addicted. Don't eat sugar. Sometimes it's just as simple as drink more water. Sometimes just a couple of words can help change. And what 5 words can set somebody free or give them that little bit of advice to change their world? And it doesn't always work that it can be replicated. But this is what life is about. Life is not a statistical event for scientists to be looking at. And as we develop these superpowers, it's not about proving them over and over and over again. It's about having them when we need them. It's about developing the mind, not for performance sake, but for self-growth sake. As we start to increase the super learning, to help ourselves, help others, help the planet, and help the cosmos, help the whole.
So as we see from our little story with Joe, we see that 5 little words changed him, helped him. And you doing QESP work is oftentimes looking for those 5 little words, and you're going to help every patient if you tell them to drink more water. Every patient can be helped by helping them find an exercise program that will help them to get a little stretching, might help them to work their mind, exercise their heart and their soul. So our machine is capable of measuring through space, this subspace. Our machine is capable of getting some reactivity indices. These things our machine is capable of doing. Our machine is then capable of helping. I won't say the word treating. Our machine is capable, through prayer, of positively affecting the health. Because inside our system is a quantum prayer wheel that will help to say millions and millions of prayers that help the patient. But then your voice, your demeanor, your confidence, learning how to work with the patient, learning how to do the proper interview, subspace interview, as you get online. All of these things then help to come in as you start to become more and more learned and become a quantum entwinement, subspace, prayer therapist. So I've done a little bit of an introduction. I hope that you learned a little something today and turned on to more of our videos and learned more.